Welcome to the show today, everyone. I am delighted to have with me Gail Becker. Gail is the founder of a brand that you may have bought yourself when you were walking through the aisles of one of the 25,000 stores that sell her products. Her brand is called Calipower, and it is a gluten-free alternative to our favorite meals like pizza and chicken tenders. They have even more innovations coming out this year. Gail's company has just skyrocketed. It started not that many years ago. They are now in 25,000 stores around the country, and they have sold close to 40 million pizzas alone. So today's episode is chock full of advice and insight from Gail about how she did it, and I can't wait for you to hear it. So we're going to jump right in. Gail, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I want you to know that I saw your product in the store. I think I was in a Walmart. Is that accurate?
Yeah,
absolutely.
We're in 25,000 stores, including lots of Walmarts across the country.
So I was in a Walmart walking by and saw Calipower, and I thought, as a person who came from brand marketing before what I do now, I thought that is such a brilliant name. And then I thought, that looks like a very healthy option for my kids who love pizza. So I'm going to try it. So let's take a step back.
Okay.
Can you talk about how you came up with the idea for Calipower? And the name is brilliant. So share with us how that all came about.
Sure. So when I started Calipower, I didn't have any food experience other than I cooked it, bought it, and ate it. I did come from the world of marketing, so I did know a little bit about brands and how to build a brand and brand marketing, but I knew nothing about food. I'm the mom of 2 boys with celiac disease, and they were diagnosed at such a young age that there was no gluten-free food in the store. So everything that they wanted or needed, I would have to make from scratch. And if that meant a cake, that meant the frosting too. But what it did is it gave me a really good perch from which to watch the gluten-free industry evolve. And what I began to notice over the years was how much junk the industry was putting in gluten-free food. More fat, sugar, salt, and calories, and less nutrients. And, probably like a lot of your listeners, I thought, oh, well, clearly someone will notice this and someone will do something about it. But unfortunately, no one ever did. So ultimately, I guess you could say Calipower was born out of a frustration of waiting, as well as, a frustration with what I was finding in corporate America. So I made the decision to leave my very comfortable job in May of 2016 and launched Calipower in February 2017.
Well, I love that story because the best ideas and innovations come from necessity, right? So you had 2 children who had a need for this type of food and decided to do something about it, which is amazing. It is. And saw, I know you saw very quick success because I know a lot of other entrepreneurs who are in the similar space, and it takes a lot of time to get into some of the retailers that you were in. So can you talk a little bit about what you think helped accelerate that timeline for you?
Yeah, I would say, look, I would say it's 3 things. So first of all, as is true with so much in business, it was timing, right? Just as the world was starting to look for healthier options, particularly in the frozen aisle, which quite frankly hadn't been healthified, if you will, for quite some time. And in the case of pizza, like never. So one of it was timing. I think, I really hit the timing right in terms of what the world was looking for. And obviously we were first to market. And so we were able to leverage that first to market advantage. Second, I think you touched on it. It was in terms of marketing and brand. We're very relatable brand. We're very honest. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We're a little self-deprecating. It's just our personality. We're very real is what I say, because, cooking, and it's funny, I'm fairly new to the world of Instagram food, and it never looks like it's supposed to, right? Calipower was actually born on a Pinterest fail when I was trying to make the first cauliflower crust pizza, and I thought, I'm never doing that again. And so as a result, our brand is very real and relatable. And then finally, and maybe even most importantly, in real estate, the mantra is location, location, location. In food, it's taste, taste, taste. And we were able to develop a better for you product that tastes great. And, we've never given up on that mission.
Yeah. I love that. And it's it's like the trifecta, right? And I love the way you positioned it. So can you talk to us a little bit about, so you started your career and for many years you were in corporate America, and you rose to very top, the top positions in corporate America, and you made this jump into entrepreneurship. Did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur? What inspired entrepreneurship for you?
So it's a pretty easy question, though I wasn't always honest with myself on the answer. So my father was an entrepreneur. He was an immigrant to this country. I'm actually a first-generation American.
Oh, wow.
And he had a small store in San Francisco and a small business. And, I used to ring the cash register every Saturday in his store, starting at 5 years old, for $20 a day plus lunch. And it really gave me a good view into what it meant to own your own business and, be responsible for yourself and your own destiny. And my father always said to me, why would you ever want to work for anyone else? But, like all kids who ignore their parents, I did the exact same thing. And I thought I wanted to, go and save the world. And, where I worked in news, and then, in government, and I tried all these different careers. And what I ultimately realized, and really it wasn't until his passing that I realized,
And I find it so inspiring that it was your dad and his entrepreneurial spirit that helped you at whatever point it was to step into your own entrepreneurial space. I have heard you actually talk about your dad before, and I know you mentioned that he was a Holocaust survivor and he came to this country, I'm assuming, without a huge network.
With nothing.
And basis to be successful. So, I mean, what a legacy it is that he has kind of helped to create in instilling that entrepreneurship in you. What was it like being a child of a survivor? Because actually my father was a child of 2 Holocaust survivors.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it very much shaped who he was. Also an entrepreneur, but I'm curious, can you talk a little bit about how that impacted you?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question. So one, I would say, probably fiercely independent, right? So to the lesson, and really both my parents were Holocaust survivors, and they came here with nothing and less than nothing, no money, no language, no family, no network, zero. And when I think about sort of this notion of sort of not relying on anybody to feed your family or be responsible for yourself, that was always really, really key. So that the ability to take care of oneself, ironically, food was always really important. Like, you never wasted food. They grew up starving. My father always said that, in the camps, the starvation was the hunger was the worst thing. And so food had, maybe even undue importance in my childhood. We always had a big dinner, even if we couldn't afford other things. My mother always bought the best possible food because, that was how you showed people that you love them. And I find that is really also core to why I wanted to start Calipower is I wanted to
Mhm.
help people. I wanted to, give people nourishment. It was very much all of those same elements. And then, I guess finally was, the interesting thing about my dad, and I would say a lot of Holocaust survivors who end up, leading very successful lives, is that you're sort of afraid of nothing because you've already had the worst that life has to offer you. So
Mhm.
what are you really going to be afraid of? And I
Mhm.
I really believe that, to be an entrepreneur, not only do you have to be a little bit crazy, but you also have to be a whole lot of fearless.
Yeah.
And I think that if my father passed along anything to me that helped me on my journey, it was that fearlessness and
Yeah.
that, desire to try, even though you really have no idea what you might lose.
Well, and I think you're raising such an incredibly important point about entrepreneurship, and because it is not as sound as working for a large company, right? It's a lot
Right.
riskier than working
Right.
for a large company, as you've experienced. What what allows you to get past is because in entrepreneurship, I liken it to like it's a roller coaster with highs and lows in any given day,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
So at which I it sounds like you can relate to. Can you talk a little
Totally.
bit about how do you deal with the variability of
Mm.
that in a given day, especially since you came from corporate America, where I think it is more it's a little bit more stable. So can you talk about how, as an entrepreneur, you deal with the variability, the highs and lows in a given day?
It's such an interesting question because it's actually two things that are very different. One, right, the highs and lows are so much more dramatic in this world of entrepreneurship, but you have that combined with the fact that you care 100 times more.
Mm,
And I think one of the reasons why I ultimately decided to leave corporate America was because I stopped caring. I stopped
mm,
caring who won what pitch or how much
mm,
money we were going to make or
mhm.
what our competitor did. I just didn't care anymore.
Yeah,
And when you stop caring, that's when you know that you have to leave. The
yeah.
flip side to that is the world that I'm living in now and the world that you're referring to of entrepreneurship, where I care so much. Maybe I care too much. And it is that caring that makes the highs so high, so unbelievably high, and the lows so just, gut wrenching. And you
Mm,
feel it every single day. And you're right. It's not that the journey goes like this, it's that every day goes like this. And
mhm.
it's every single day as I try and tell people there's a crisis. Every single day something goes wrong. I've started Calipower in May of 2016. We launched in February of 2017. And I can tell you every single day something has gone wrong. Maybe there was a day in 2019 that was, I think it was a Tuesday when it was okay. But other than that, nothing. So,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, it is excruciating. Sleep I haven't enjoyed in quite some time, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because
Right.
isn't it wonderful to have something in your life, some purpose that you care so much
Mhm,
about, and that
mhm.
I've actually managed to build a team around me of people who care as much, who equally care. It's astonishing to me, and I feel so incredibly fortunate.
Yeah, and that passion, right?
Mhm.
The caring, which also can be translated in a way to passion, is
Mhm.
something that you comes across in everything you do, right? So that is one of the things that, as an entrepreneur, it sounds like you're bringing to your business. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about, so you started out with pizza and right at
Yes.
Calipower, and you had, as you mentioned, you were kind of early in the market in terms of doing it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But you've now evolved. It's not just pizza. Can you talk a little bit about how the brand has evolved?
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, we started out, we launched with just 4 SKUs of pizza. And those were 4 mighty hardworking SKUs because we built an entire business around it. And to be honest with you, I can't tell you that when I started Calipower, I had these grand visions for how I would build the company out into all these different categories and all these different parts of the grocery store. I can't say that because it wouldn't be true. It was only when I saw the reactions of 2 of our key stakeholders that I
Mhm.
realized we could do more. One was the retailers who,
Mhm.
saw the type of people that we were bringing into the frozen aisle, people who hadn't bought a frozen pizza for quite some time,
Mhm.
and they were asking us for more. And that really got me thinking and, about expanding the brand. And even more importantly than that, our consumers. I hear from consumers every single day. And
Mhm.
really nothing makes me happier. I hear from them on email, on phone. I hear from them via our social media, on direct message, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I hear from them everywhere. And I read and listen to every single one. And
Mhm.
I always learn something. And one of the things that they told me is that they wanted more. They gave us permission to do more. And I really waited for that permission. I didn't want to go into categories that I didn't feel like made sense. And so today we span a number of categories. We have our pizzas, our chicken tenders, healthiest chicken
Mhm.
tender ever made. We have tortillas, which are actually can also be refrigerated. So we've now gone into a different part of the grocery store. Our sweet potatoes and our latest new rice cups, which are frozen rice cups that are microwavable, recyclable, and dishwasher safe and come in the most unbelievable flavors. And then we're launching into a new category in about a week or so.
That is so exciting. And it's so interesting too, because I think a lot of people go into things thinking I have to have the full plan. I have to know exactly
Mm,
what this is going to be. But it sounds like what you did was you said, I have one thing that I know there's a need for. And it's 4 SKUs, but it's one thing I know there's a need for.
yeah.
And I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go for it and do it. And then you, I guess, have built the team around you that can
Hmm.
help you with the growth. You have sold, I read, 36 million pizzas since 2017.
I don't know how old that figure is. We might be a little bit more now, but yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It sounds like
Stretching
so it's more than it sounds like a heck of a lot
it's
of
probably a little bit more now, but yeah. Yeah, we sell a lot of pizzas every day. So it's great.
So talk a little bit about the what you were like. I'm so curious when I see women like you do this. What were you like as a child? Were you entrepreneurial as a child? Was there anything that you could share with us that kind of helps us understand, what you were like that kind of led you to the path you're on today?
There are probably 3 things from my childhood that I would think of sort of have an impact. One, I was fiercely independent. So my mother and father were only married for I would they divorced a year after I was born.
Mm,
So one lived in LA, one lived in Orange County, California, the other lived in San Francisco. And at a very young age, I would fly back and forth every weekend to
wow.
visit the other one, which,
Hmm.
you know, um, unfortunately they didn't have Frequent Flyer miles back then, but I would, it was I would get on the plane by myself at a very young age
Mm,
and just fly back and forth. And it seemed very natural to me because I didn't know any different. I was known as the kid in elementary school whose parents were divorced. Nobody's parents were divorced, just to give you that kind of insight.
mm,
And I think it did sort of make me feel, I had a key around my neck and I let myself in. And so I learned that independence at a very young
mhm,
age, and I was very sort of comfortable with that. I think, the other part of my childhood that I don't know, maybe presents itself today, interestingly enough, and I usually don't talk about this, but I used to have a really bad stuttering problem. when I was little, very bad. And my mother got me all kinds of, speech therapists, and I'd get called out in class. And, I'd also be picked on a lot
Mm.
by kids, right? And it's interesting, I think as a result of that. So one, now I sort of went the other way, and I love to speak to people, and I love to, be able to tell stories and be confident in that. But I think because I was picked on so much at such a young age, and I was different, that I do have a lot of empathy for the underdog. I do have a lot of empathy for those less fortunate than me. And that is that is something that has probably stuck with me as a result. And then finally, my grandfather, the only grandparent I ever met, when he came to Southern California, he had a dairy farm. And Southern California used to be all dairy farms then. And we each were given our own cow, and I'd have to milk it and take care of it when it was sick. I'm really a farm girl. People laugh when I say that, but I love that time. I love the notion of farms and food and animals, and I just like that whole, I think I'm the only person who loves the smell of cows. And I just and I do feel like it's influenced me. I feel so fortunate to be somewhat involved in sort of the food and ag world, and that's a real blessing to me.
Yeah, and one of the things that I know about your company is that that the CEO, the CFO, and the COO are all women.
Yes,
Can
we
you
are.
can you talk a little bit about the importance of having that type of setup with your company? I think it's amazing. And it's wonderful that you're supporting women. Can you talk a little bit about, though, maybe also the sound business behind it?
Yeah. Look, so I came from corporate world, and actually one of the things that I did in my spare time when I was there is I tried to increase the presence of women in senior leadership roles. There are lots of women in corporate America. That's not the problem. The problem is they often don't make it to the top, and what are the barriers that stop them from getting there. And so I was always very cognizant of those issues. I knew, being cognizant, that if I didn't make a conscious effort to do that, if I wasn't going to, who would? So I did feel an additional responsibility. Did I do so at the peril of the business? Absolutely not. And I think Calipower, the success of Calipower is very much due to that powerful trifecta. But it is something that I was very conscious and cognizant about, and I feel really good about those decisions, because they're going to go on and do great things of their own, and it's just a privilege to come from to set that type of environment for all the women that are working for us, and all the people that are working for us, and all the people that buy our products. I want people to feel really good about supporting Calipower.
I love that, and it sounds like you are walking the talk of supporting other women, which is in this day and age, especially with excuse me, what's happened just during the pandemic, and how I'm sure a lot of people are calling the time we're in right now a she session, because so many more women have lost their jobs versus men, just proportionally, because of the industries that women work in, and because also women have had to take a step back because of taking care of children who are not in school right now. So I think it's wonderful that you are supporting women, and helping, putting women in key roles within your company and supporting them in that way. Can you talk a little bit about the shift? So you spent your entire career up until 2016 doing being in corporate America.
Yeah.
And then you made the shift to being an entrepreneur. I heard you talk about the mindset change that you had of going from saying, well, why me? Why would I be able to be successful doing this? To saying, well, why not me?
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about how you think about that and and how other women, because I think we hear from women that they really struggle with the confidence that they can do something if they're not fully qualified to do it. They say that, right, women, we wait until we're 100% qualified for a job, like ticking all of the requirements off on a job to apply for it, while men do apply for jobs when they're 60% qualified. So can you talk a little bit about that mind shift, because it's so important and I think can help a lot of women think about how they can just sort of take that leap and go for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. The first thing I'd like to say to all the women out there who are thinking about making the jump or taking the leap, I'm just going to ask a really simple question. Who would have ever hired me to be the CEO of Calipower? Nobody. I was so highly unqualified. And if I hadn't built it myself, I wouldn't have the job. And so I say that because I think a lot of people, not just women, but maybe women even in particular, we sort of wait for a sign, or I'll speak for myself. I waited for a sign. Oh, maybe I'll do that one day. I don't know. I'll know when the time is right. No, you won't. It's like having kids, right? If you wait for the right time, it's never going to happen. So you might as well just do it. And so I guess my counsel would be, don't wait for the sign. Don't wait for that moment when everything is perfect and in place that that you can make the jump, because it's never going to be like that. For me, that moment or that stark realization was all wrapped up in the passing of my dad. But the time wasn't right. Of course, the time wasn't right. I had 2 kids in school. I had, I was divorced, and I was like trying to make my life work from a whole variety of things. Timing couldn't be worse. But I did it. Yeah. And, ideas are a dime a dozen. Everybody's got a good idea. Execution is what separates the entrepreneur. Yeah. So, don't wait. And I think if the pandemic has taught us anything, it's really the fragility of life. Yeah. And, what are you waiting for? Right? Because who knows what's going to be here tomorrow. So go ahead and do it. Bet on yourself.
So I love that you said that, because it leads me into the next thing that I've heard you talk about that I think is really important for you to share with our audience. Okay. And that is, so we're encouraging people to take the leap and to try. But as we know, setbacks happen all the time when you're running a business, right? And that's what you were saying. It's all about the execution. Lots of great ideas, but it's a lot about the execution. Right. How do you deal with the setbacks? Because there is failure, because failure is going to happen. How do you deal with that? You've said that when you left corporate America and you decided to start your company and in an industry that you didn't really have a whole lot of experience in, you said that you thought it was better to say oops than what if. What if, right. So can you talk a little bit though about how you deal with those setbacks, the failure, because that is inevitably going to happen?
So there were times building Calipower when I would sit in the car and just cry. Like literally I'd be driving somewhere and I would just cry. And so what the hell did I do? I gave up a really good job and I did all of that. I worked so hard to get where I was. I gave it all up and I'm starting some company that I know nothing about. I bet everything I had on a vegetable. What the heck was I thinking? And I would talk to myself. And I think, the advice that I give women is treat yourself like you would a friend. What would your friend say to you if you spewed all that out? They would support you. They would lift you up. They would say, you can do this. There was a moment in Calipower, history where it was pretty early on and I had something really horrible happen. And I thought, that's it. I'm out. I was literally at the fork of the road, literally. And I called up 4 people and I called them up 4 people separately. And I said, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know what to do. And each one of them said to me, you can do it. Mm-hmm. And finally, what we have to do for ourselves is we have to say that to ourselves. And I just, look, I'm a bit of an older entrepreneur. I didn't just start this company when I graduated college. There's nothing wrong with that. It's great. There's a lot of advantages to that.
Yeah.
But, I didn't want to wait around anymore. I didn't want to see what if. I didn't want that. I wanted, to me, trying and failing would have been better than not trying at all. Yeah. And that really is the ultimate thing. That is the ultimate question that people have to answer for yourselves. What does success look like? It doesn't have to be $100 million company. Maybe it's a $3 million company. Maybe it's enough to just, keep your family going. Maybe it's the fact that you tried. What a wonderful metric of success, really just trying and showing your kids that you bet on yourself. Is there anything more important than that? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because you strike me as you're talking as somebody who has a very strong self-awareness. and I think it's a skill that a lot of women struggle with. Can you talk about, do you have a daily practice for self-awareness? How do you cultivate the self-awareness? Because it is such an important part towards a path of living a life that is fulfilling and makes you and makes you a contributor in the world and happy.
Well, answer number 1 is I learned the hard way, right? Like we all do. I learned the hard way. I didn't always have that. I made lots of mistakes. I have plenty of regrets. I have a lot of missed opportunities, boom, 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 boom. I could fill up 7 podcasts just talking about all those things. But what a shame all of those losses would be if I didn't learn from them. Mm. And the whole issue, the whole notion of, better to say oops than what if, is that nagging feeling inside you that, says, oh my God, what if I had done that? Mm-hmm. And that's a horrible way to live. And I knew whether Calipower was successful or not, I knew I didn't want to have one more of those moments. Had enough of them in my life. And so, I did take the bet. What people don't realize, and I hope this gives comfort to some of your listeners, is how close I came to not starting Calipower, how close I came to not listening to that little voice inside my head, like literally this close. And it scares the heck out of me when I think about that, because I really realize every day is a roller coaster, but I'm as fulfilled as I've ever been.
Yeah.
And to think how close I came to not having that sense of fulfillment, it scares me beyond words.
So this idea that the what if is something you didn't want to get to the end of your life and say, well, what if I had just done that? Right. I love that. And it is, the flip side of it, which is the oops, is I guess you have to get to a point where you get yourself comfortable with, I can deal with the oops, but I don't want to deal with the what if. I don't want that to be my legacy.
Exactly. And you touched on it earlier when you actually said, women feel like they have to be able to know this, and this. Well, what women also have to be able to do is feel really comfortable in what they don't know.
Yeah.
When I started Calipower, I knew a whole bunch about this and a whole lot of nothing about this. And so you know what I did? I hired people a lot smarter than me with a lot more experience to teach me about this. And it's sort of the same thing. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know what you don't know. And you have to be really confident in that not knowing so that you can build your company around it.
I love that you said that, Gail, that this idea of being comfortable with not knowing something. I think that it's a very uncomfortable place for most people, but in particular, I think as women, because we're so earnest, we don't like to not know something. We want to know it in
We
order to.
try and make everything perfect, right? We try and tie everything up with a bow and everything. I mean, my life is like my hair. It's like every day it's different. Every day it's unruly. I don't care. I give up. It is what it is. And we're just going to accept it.
I love that analogy. I love that analogy too, right? Because you think about it, people say bad hair day, right? And because so much is tied to our hair.
Exactly.
Brilliant analogy. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so what is next for you and for Calipower?
So for Calipower, well, one, it's a little hard to we're a bit inextricable these days, me and Calipower. But I will say that for Calipower, we have lots of innovation coming this year, which I'm really excited. In fact, we have innovation coming in just a couple of weeks, we're announcing, and I'm beyond thrilled. And if anyone listening sends us a direct message on any of our social channels, we're going to give you a coupon for any free Calipower product. That's my way of saying thank you.
Awesome.
So we have a lot of innovation. I'm super excited about that. I also want to see the company continue to grow. People may not know that with every product we sell, we give a percentage of sales to help build teaching gardens in underserved schools across the country. And so we want to build a lot more teaching gardens. And that is really what brings me joy and satisfaction and purpose. And that's my mission is to build a hell of a lot more teaching gardens.
I love that. And we will have some instructions about those coupons. Thank you for offering that up. So how can people get access?
Direct message us on any of our social channels at Calipower and just put "She Speaks" and we will send you a coupon good for any free product.
Awesome. That is so generous of you. And Gail, how can people follow you, keep in touch if they want to do that?
Sure. I am on all the social media, Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn is probably the best way. At Gail Becker on Instagram. And, I do like to hear from people. I like to share things that inspire me, give you sneak peeks about what we're up to, and just hopefully spread a little joy every day like we're all trying to do these days.
Gail, thank you so much. I am so excited to see what innovations you guys are coming out with and to continue to watch this journey that you're on and just the amazing things that you are doing. Thank you for spending time with us today and sharing it.
Thank you for having me and really appreciate it and love spending time with you.